करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
The last of the poems in the book Select English Poems compiled by Swamiji is a great epic called Sohrab and Rustum. This is authored by Matthew Arnold. The original epic is in Persian, and this has been very beautifully translated and in letter and spirit captured by Matthew Arnold. Honestly, what is given here, whether it is the full epic, we really do not know, because in the beginning of the poem it says an episode, and if you see the Hindi movie which is based on this Sohrab and Rustum, I think there is a long background story and everything given which ultimately culminates in the battle scene. So if it is an epic, because in our Indian culture and the civilization, we know of two great epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are actually voluminous and very, very, very big texts. Greek have their own epics, and not only that, in India, apart from these two well-known epics, there are other epics also. In Tamil literature particularly, there are said to be 5 great epics. They are called as Aimperunkaappiyam, of which only 3 are available. 2 are completely lost. Those 2 are referred in other literature. That's how we come to know about it. And these 5 epics are said to be the 5 ornaments of Mother Tamil. Tamil is visualized as a mother, like Bharata Mata you have, like that Tamil is visualized as the mother, and she has 5 ornaments, and each of these ornaments add beauty and decorate her in one particular part, like that. That's how it is all named also. So these are also epics, grand epics, and obviously Ramayana and Mahabharata, they have no comparison. And interestingly, Ramayana and Mahabharata epics are there in other languages also, though Sanskrit is the original. So when we talk about epics, that is how we understand. So maybe it is a part of a bigger poem. We have not done any research on it, we do not know. But this episode that is given here itself is very voluminous and very, very big. But as far as the theme of the poem is concerned, which Swamiji highlights again and again and again, is the theme of attachment. The last 3 poems, which are relatively big poems, and this is obviously the biggest of them, the theme is attachment. Ladomia depicted the attachment of wife towards husband. Andrea del Sarto depicted the husband's infatuation towards wife. Sohrab and Rustum, compared to these 2, is even more tragic. As we read along, we will know. Not only that, the main crux of the poem, which is emotions, is the dialogue between the father and the son, which is captured very beautifully by Matthew Arnold. So we can even imagine how the original should have been. But as an English poem, this itself brings out the emotions in a very great way. It is difficult to capture emotions in words. It is difficult to capture even sense perception in words. Suppose you have seen a particular architecture in a particular temple, or a beautiful sight, or eaten a particular sweet. You can describe it to others, but the way in which you have experienced, you may not be able to exactly convey. But since it's a physical perception, you can bring in all the dimensions and qualities as much as possible to explain to the other person. But how do we explain emotion in words? It's not possible. As the emotions gets deeper, the words fail. Any emotion for that matter, positive or negative, deep love, deep gratitude, extreme anger, extreme jealousy, all this will maybe change your body language, it will change your demeanor, but words stop. Even as you try to express, the words stop. But obviously, even our great epics and other great poets we have seen, they do bring out that emotions as you read through the portion, or if somebody explains the portion of Ramayana, let's say, when Rama searches for Sita, there's nobody who will not cry. As Rama is has lost Sita and he is searching in the forest. Those are the portions like that. Similarly, Tara's lamenting after Vali's death, or Dasharatha's pleading, various emotions like that are depicted. Here is also a very beautiful depiction of emotions. So, Swamiji always says that when you go through this poem, you have to only not stop and explain, you have to only just read through the poem. It is beautifully captured. And obviously, like any long epic, it goes into various details which may not be of any consequence for us. He's explaining, let us say, the story is like this. This is based on an incident which is supposed to have happened 5-6 centuries before the Common Era. Rustum was a great warrior. He was a commander-in-chief. He was undefeated in one-to-one combats. He won so much laurels, and he was highly revered and respected as a warrior. He married daughter of a small king of Azerbaijan, and I forgot the name, Tamanna or Tanimya or something. And he used to be always in the war front. And much after their marriage, his wife conceived, and Rustum was eagerly waiting for a son to whom he can pass on his knowledge of warfare. So even that concept of wanting a son and to pass on to him, that had caught up his personality too much. Actually, if you look at this from a normal angle, this is quite a natural instinct and a natural desire for every creature. I mean, to have an offspring. And generally, when we say nature has been, it is not biased, and it makes sure that there are equal population of men and women. That is how it has designed itself. In every creature, it is like that. The pairs of opposites are very beautifully synchronized. And yet, traditionally, for whatever reasons, we are not going into it now, there is always a perpetuity or continuity with reference to one's lineage, and therefore a desire for son is always there. It is across all cultures. Even in our culture, there is a ceremony called Pumsavanam. Then there is another ceremony called Simanta. These are done when a lady is pregnant, when she is carrying. Traditionally, the first one is to be done by the end of 3 months, and the second one by the end of 6 or 7 months. But nowadays, even as people perform this, they combine these two and perform. The first one is actually meaning is wishing a son. That's how it is. Now, as I said, we are not going into the details of it, but one of the things you can easily easily relate to is that in terms of wanting perpetuity and in terms of continuing in one's own tradition, in one's own field of activity or anything, there will be perpetuity as far as son is there, because daughters will get married and go to the other side. That's the only thing. So when you want to live on and on and on, it is more so through your son is a general feeling. So that's the main thing. And this is cutting across all sets of people. More so with reference to Kshatriyas, because the ruler is somebody who will have someone who has to take care of the whole kingdom. So there are various other people who are dependent on it. Though there have been successful queens also in the past, but in general it is the first son who takes over as the heir apparent as far as the king is concerned. And all the others who are under the Kshatriya umbrella, who can be warriors also, they have everybody, whether it be a trader, whether it be a craftsman, whether it be a priest, whether it be a knowledgeable person, everybody has a positive pride in their profession. That must be there also. And that has to be perpetuated further. And obviously when it comes to warfare, it is the male who is supposed to fight. Again here, feminists in the modern era may object to, but you can look into various YouTube videos also. Now there have been various discussions about it. However, in the Hollywood also they show what is the equivalent of that, I don't know. For men it is called G.I. Jane or something like that. So like Superwoman, like Superman, there's a Superwoman, like that. Various movies are taken, various cartoons are also presented to show them in the same light. But what you must understand is the strength of the woman, even we are talking about physical strength, not mental strength. Strength of the woman is far superior, but it is in some other areas. Strength of the man is superior, but it is in some other areas. This is naturally given. However much a man may be strong, he cannot bear a child. Even in England, they made an experiment, just for their experience. They tied a very heavy ball to the bottom side of their tummy and tied it to show how women feel when they are carrying the baby inside. And even for a couple of days also they cannot bear. And here for months together, up to 9 to 10 months, she is carrying a baby. It requires extraordinary strength actually. That is how nature has designed. In all creatures, in animals, in everywhere, like that it is. Similarly, there is this brutal strength, even in the press button comfort of today's warfare. It is just not possible, because the brutish physical strength is also something as an extension of what is there inside. Being emotional is much more natural to a woman than a man. Family and bondage and attachment is much more natural here. That is why in this poem we see that there is an attachment of the wife also to the son. But what is highlighted as a tragedy is the father's attachment to the son, not mother's attachment, because it is taken to be natural as it is. We see that weakness in Dasharatha also in Ramayana, that how he had this attachment towards son. Otherwise he was such a strong person, but when it came to Rama, he was that attachment was very much visible. So coming back here, Rustum was a great warrior and he was attached to this concept of, so this is natural we said, but he was extremely over attached to the concept that there has to be a son, and to that son he has to pass on. So he was yearning and very eagerly waiting for it. And he had gone somewhere means again in the duties of the warfare only, he was somewhere else far off. And in the meantime his wife delivered, and it was a son. But for whatever reason, she sent word that it is a daughter. What could be the reason? The reason could be that she was afraid that he will quickly take him away and train him in arms. Because we also understand that she is a daughter of some sort of a king, not maybe a great king, but some sort of a king. She is wife of a warrior. She will also have these qualities of being what is a Kshatrani, maybe. I'm just saying we do not know the details. So she will be definitely knowing that the son will be trained. That being the case, you cannot resist in any way that cub of a lion to not to grow like a lion. It will grow like that only. But in that immediate fear of attachment, what and how we will say and what is the consequences of it, all these things do not come to mind at all. So we cannot think in terms of the long-term consequences. Short-term, she thought that maybe she will have his company, maybe she will divert him to some other things or whatever it is, whatever be the thing. Or see, the thing is, what is not given in the poem is whether if she sends a wrong message to Rustum, whether or not he will stop coming back to his home, whether she knew it or not, that is not given. So she cannot be such a cunning and manipulative and such sort of a person to take a stance like that. But what is given in the poem is that she sent word to Rustum that what is born, who is born is a girl. And Rustum is completely distraught. He did not imagine this. He was totally, shaken completely. He was in despair. And in that despair mode, he decided not to come back to his home at all. And sort of he retired. He was not much enthused and inspired to carry on with his profession also. He has seen enough battlefields, he has seen enough glory and other things like that it is. And this news completely broke his heart. So that's what it is. To the extent that he was totally attached, to that extent he was completely shattered. But Sohrab, the son, grew up like his illustrious father. He was extremely powerful. He grew up to be a great warrior. And he heard the glory of his father from everybody. Rustum's feats were much known. And the son was also in that way attached to his father, and he somehow eagerly waited to meet him. So he would go for all the combats, warfare, and then he will search for his father, and he will see if there are old enough people who he meets who could be his father, like that it is. In this process, he belonged to the army of the Tartars. He was a great warrior by himself. The Tartar king Afrasiab helped him with his army, and wherever he went, he conquered everybody. Wherever there was a single combat also, he conquered everybody, and he just marched on and on like that. That Rustum is somewhere there in Persia. What he is doing, where he is gone, because that was the last assignment, probably he went and he never returned, but nobody knows where he is now. Only Persians knew that he was Rustum and he was there on the other side. Now this king Afrasiab thought of using Sohrab to conquer Persia. That was his motivation for the war. And Sohrab's motivation is that somewhere, maybe he has seen everywhere else, and here is one place where he can go and see if he can find his father. So in the process, Afrasiab probably, the commentary says he knew and he withheld the information that he is on the other side or whatever it is. But he was very eager that Persians must be conquered. And so the war is going on, and Sohrab now requests for a one-to-one combat, because he is sort of having a feeling that in one-to-one combat, having known his fame also now, that Rustum might come and he can seek his father. So main focus and aim of Sohrab in and through all this battle is to find out his father. He is also very, very desperate, and therefore this challenge was laid, and the challenge had to be accepted by the Persians. Otherwise, it's a shame. And they knew that there is nobody who can match Sohrab. And they knew that Rustum was camping also nearby. So they somehow persuade Rustum to come to fight. Rustum refuses. He said, I am done with all this thing, go to hell, whatever you want to do, you do, like that he was saying. And he is also still carrying on the old memories, and he says, if my son was there, he would be like Rustum. Like that he was, I would be happy to have like a son like him. I will make him represent me, and I will go to my father and lead a happy and retired life. Like that he dismisses. But then they provoke him, and then he agrees to fight. He agrees to fight incognito, that he will not be known as he is. And then as they approach each other, there is whatever it is, they have this some intuitive feeling towards each other, both these people, the father and the son. They do not know. The Persians know who he is, but they are camped on this side of the river, they are camped on that side of the river, and there's a vast plain of the sands that is there in between, and only these two are coming in between, and they are going to fight. So just as they say that the blood is thicker than the water, there is some feeling that both of them have. Rustum feels a great pity for this youth. And then he makes an offer that come over to our side, you can be like my son and you continue, why are you with the Tartars? You can achieve much more glory. Here he offers everything for him with a genuine intention only. Sohrab comes and kisses him in the feet, and he says, this type of a magnanimity probably only my father only can have. And he says, he asks him, are you Rustum? Rustum is, at this point of time, he thinks negatively as to why he is asking like this, and he gives his own reason. He says, forget about all these things. You think that you can challenge Rustum? I have known Rustum. He says, therefore you fight here, you don't talk. Either give you a chance, you can come to our side, or you will be finished. So Sohrab says, I have also come here to fight only, but you say at least, Rustum, let us make peace. You talk to me about Rustum. He is very earnestly pleading. You will have enough people on our side to fight. I will have enough people on your side to fight. Let the fighting happen later, but you talk to me about Rustum, he pleads. And he thinks there is some sort of a trickery or cunning nature of Sohrab is what Rustum thinks, and he is not yielding. And then a fight ensues. And in the fight, first time Rustum falls down because deftly Sohrab moves away from his attacks. And he is now very, very ashamed. Sort of his ego is hurt. In front of all the warriors, he has fallen down. So therefore, he is now enraged. And then the fight happens in a very big way. A great battle happens between them. Sohrab is winning. And and this type of enemy Rustum has never combated in his whole life. So in order to inspire himself, he shouts in the middle of the battle, come on Rustum, Rustum, he shouts. Once Sohrab listens or hears that name, he is completely paralyzed. He drops his shield and is transfixed. And when he is unarmed like that, Rustum pierces the javelin, the spear, and he kills Sohrab. That's the most tragic part. And then he falls on the ground, and Rustum taunts him and with various words. So you have to see how the emotions change there. First it's of extreme enmity and anger, and Sohrab replies back, and then finally he says, you have killed an unarmed foe, but your days are counted. My death will be avenged by my father Rustum, he says. And first time Rustum is hearing something, but he doesn't want to believe. He dismisses the whole thing, and though Sohrab is talking various things that he knows, the place and the other areas and where he came from, everything, he is not ready to believe, and he says, "What are you saying? Rustum never had a son; he only had a daughter." And he thinks that he might have, got this message from others or something, or he thinks himself to be Rustum's son so that he can feel great or something. Various thoughts run into his mind. But Sohrab is not yielding at all. He is vehement, and he says, and he is countering him back with all sorts of arguments. Now Rustum is slowly pensive. And finally he says, if you are really Rustum's son, you will bear the seal which is there in the lineage of Rustum, which is a particular animal seal tattooed on the arm. Sohrab says, I do not know why I should show to you, but you are right, and he shows that. The moment he sees that, Rustum is completely shattered, and he is falling on the ground. And his emotions completely changed now. Here was a father waiting for the son. Here was the son waiting for the father. And when they meet and they know each other, the son is going to die. You have to imagine that situation. So immediately Rustum wants to kill himself for the great sin that he has committed. Sohrab understands that and slowly moves and prevents that. And what a deluge of emotions that flow between them is that what we have read. That is one of the highlights of the poem. And then finally he says that I promised my mother that you will be back so you can bury me and rejoin the mother. At least then I'll remain fulfilled in my death, like that. It ends as a great tragedy. But the message here in the poem is interesting. We have seen that the mother's attachment to son is there, and therefore she doesn't want to let him to warfare, everything. That can be little more natural also. The father is also obviously extremely attached to the son, and this is the case with most fathers. Because the father sees his reflection in the son, and it is him only. So son's victory is his victory, son's defeat is his defeat. That's how it is, like that. But here is a extreme attachment where the concept of the unborn son itself has preoccupied the mind of Rustum to a very great extent. And Swami Ramatirtha says, anybody who is attached has to suffer. This is a law. Nobody can escape this law. Depending on the degree of the attachment, to that extent suffering will be there. Either the object will be taken away, or there will be a rupture in relationship, or the person will die, he says in that lecture. Very powerful words for us to get it deep into our heart. He says it very powerfully like this. So that is the theme here. So as we read through, you have to just go through the motion of the poem with this, not just the motion, the emotions of the poem. That's all it is. And what we need to understand here is that obviously the son was also very eager and very attached. See, what is interesting here is, this is not something negative about it. A natural affiliation to the young ones is there in the animal kingdom also. It's a positive love, so to say. But in case of animals and other creatures, the detachment happens quite naturally also. The attachment is there, they rear it and it grows up, and after that there is no concept of getting married and grandfather and grandmother and uncle and aunt and all those things are not there. There is a natural detachment. The adult goes away like that. So that's the life of an animal. That's the life of a bird. We are also designed like that, but it has to be done consciously through knowledge. It is not having a relationship of a grandfather and grandmother which is unique for human beings is something wrong. But as you grow along with maturity, with knowledge, a sense of detachment should come even as you are relating with people. And this has to be practiced right from the beginning only. So therefore, the studies in the beginning stage of our life is not just to give us worldly knowledge, but also guide us towards the permanent aspects of life, attached to which we will be able to naturally detach from the worldly samsara. This is the method, this is the way. It is not after the age of 60 it should come, it will come automatically, or after a tragedy it has to come automatically. Nothing like that is guaranteed. No. It is only through knowledge, it is only through maturity, and for that purpose only intellect is given. It is not to probe and in all the areas of the universe and try to be very in your area of Swadharma, you do that. But the main aim of intellect is to develop this sense of yearning for the higher. In Ladomia, beautifully Wordsworth put that, be taught, O faithful concert. What is it? He says, develop a mortal yearning to ascend, and for this purpose only love was given. Love was given only for the purpose of understanding and going towards developing that mumukshatva and going towards the higher. That is the purpose of being born as a human being. Otherwise, how can we claim ourselves to be any great species than the other species? So that is the purpose. So therefore, here was a great warrior, two great warriors, in fact, father and son. But at the mental level, whatever was their complete weakness in the form of attachment caused this great tragedy. We'll read through that poem.
Sohrab and Rustum. The source of this poem is a translation of the Shahnameh, a Persian national epic by Firdausi. An episode. And the first grey of morning filled the east, and the fog rose out of the Oxus stream. But all the Tartar camp along the stream was hushed, and still the men were plunged in sleep. Sohrab alone, he slept not. All night long he had lain, wakeful, tossing on his bed. But when the grey dawn stole into his tent, he rose, and clad himself, and girt his sword, and took his horseman's cloak, and left his tent, and went abroad into the cold, wet fog, through the dim camp to Peran Wisa's tent. Through the black Tartar tents he passed, which stood clustering like beehives on the low, flat strand of Oxus, where the summer floods overflow when the sun melts the snows in high Pamir. Through the black tents he passed, over that low strand, and to a hillock came, a little back from the stream's brink, the spot where first a boat crossing the stream in summer scrapes the land. The men of former times had crowned the top with a clay fort, but that was fallen, and now the Tartars built there Peran Wisa's tent, a dome of laths, and o'er it fells were spread. And Sohrab came there and went in and stood upon the thick piled carpets in the tent, and found the old man sleeping on his bed of rugs and fells, and near him lay his arms. And Peran Wisa heard him through the step, though the step was dulled, for he slept light, an old man's sleep. And he rose quickly on one arm and said, Who art thou? For it is not clear yet dawn. Speak, is there news or any night alarm? But Sohrab came to the bedside and said, Thou knowest me, Peran Wisa, it is I. The sun is not yet risen, and the foe sleep, but I sleep not. All night long I lie, tossing and wakeful, and I come to thee. For so did King Afrasiab bid me to seek thy counsel and to heed thee as thy son. In Samarkand, before the army marched. And I will tell thee what my heart desires. Thou knowest, if since from the Azerbaijan first I came upon the Tartars and bore arms, I have still served Afrasiab well, and shown at my boy's years the courage of a man. This too thou knowest, that while I still bear on the conquering Tartar ensigns through the world, and beat the Persians back on every field, I seek one man and one alone, Rustum, my father, who I hoped should one day greet, upon some well-fought field, his not unworthy, not inglorious son. So I long hoped, but him I never find. Come then, hear now, and grant me what I ask. Let the two armies rest today, but I will challenge forth the bravest Persian lords to meet me, man to man. If I prevail, Rustum will surely hear it. If I fall, old man, the dead need no one, claim no kin. Dim is the rumor of a common fight, where host meets host, and many names are sunk. But of a single combat, fame speaks clear.
See, I do not know what they call it in English, but in every big epics, or even suppose you take Ramayana, there are say various kandas, the separate portion, right? And each of them is also separated into small sequential portions, again small portions you can say, because Ramayana is like 24,000 verses. Mahabharata is nearly a lakh of verses, and the entire narration is going to go through. It's just not the story, various descriptions, and each and every description will go in detail like that. So here also, in this particular episode, which is only the battle, also there are various portions that we can split into. So he's talking about the initial request of Sohrab to Peran Wisa. Peran Wisa is the sort of a senior in charge, or in sort of a commander and a vice counsel for the Tartar armies, and their king Afrasiab has asked Sohrab to take advice and counsel from him. So when everybody was sleeping, early in the morning, he goes to Peran Wisa and he says, in my young age also I have shown great courage and I have won various battles for the Tartars, and wherever I got a chance from the opposite side, if Persians were confronting us from various angles and various other people were helping them, each and every time I have sent them back, I have defeated them. That all could be helpful for the king and the kingdom. But my motive in the battle is to seek my father, which is Rustum. So therefore, in the midst of the war, in the battle, he says, today let not all the people in the armies, they clash with each other. Let us challenge one-to-one combat. I will go from our side. So let the Persians send the best of their persons. If a warrior dies, and that's the end of the story, no big deal about it. If I win, then probably Rustum will hear of it. So that will be a chance for me to meet my father. This is his request. Now what does Peran Wisa say?
He spoke, and Peran Wisa took the hand of the young man in his and sighed and said, O Sohrab, an unquiet heart is thine. Canst thou not rest among the Tartar chiefs and share the battle's common chance with us, who love thee, but must press forever first in single fight, incurring single risk, to find a father thou hast never seen? That were far best, my son, to stay with us unmurmuring in our tents while it is war, and when 'tis truce, then in Afrasiab's towns. But if this one desire indeed rules all, to seek out Rustum, seek him not through fight, seek him in peace, and carry to his arms, O Sohrab, carry an unwounded son. But far hence seek him, for he is not here. For now it is not as when I was young, when Rustum was in front of every fray, but now he keeps apart and sits at home in Seistan with Zal his father old. Whether that his own mighty strength at last feels the abhorred approaches of old age, or in some quarrel with the Persian king, there, go, thou wilt not. Yet my heart forwards. Danger or death awaits thee on this field. Fain would I know thee safe and well, though lost to us. Fain, therefore, send thee thence in peace to seek thy father. Not seek single fights in vain, but who can keep a lion's cub from ravening, and who govern Rustum's son? Go, I will grant thee what thy heart desires.
Peran Wisa is wishing welfare of Sohrab. So he is saying that I am old and I have seen many battles, and in the young age, in every battlefield there will be Rustum. But nowadays he is not seen in any battle, he will not be here. I can understand that you are wanting to seek your father, but do not seek it through this one-to-one combat. In peaceful times, you can go and seek him, and when you present yourself to him, you will be a full personality, an unwounded son. But now, I feel there is some danger lurking, that there might be a death or danger. So, I am not for this proposal of yours that there must be one-to-one combat. But obviously, from the body language of Sohrab, he understands that the boy is not yielding at all. So then he says, because he says, when you are with us together, the chances of you getting wounded. Suppose if there is a war and something happens to him. We see in the Mahabharata war also, when somebody is wounded, there is somebody else comes to the rescue and takes him away. Like that it is. But in a one-to-one combat, there is no chance like that. It's fight to finish. Like that it is. So when that is the case, why do you want to take this risk? He feels for him. But then maybe Sohrab looked the other way or whatever it is. He knew that Sohrab was adamant. He was eagerly waiting. That's why he says he is restless like that. And then he says, how can a lion's cub be controlled? So if Rustum was like that, you will also be like this only. Therefore, I grant you your wish. That is what Peran Wisa yields to him finally. Yeah, continue.
So said he, and dropped Sohrab's hand, and left his bed and the warm rugs whereon he lay. And o'er his chilly limbs his woolen coat he passed, and tied his sandals on his feet, and threw a white cloak round him, and he took in his right hand a ruler's staff, no sword, and on his head he set his sheepskin cap, black, glossy, curled, the fleece of Karakul, and raised the curtain of his tent, and called his harem to his side, and went abroad. The sun by this had risen, and cleared the fog from the broad oxus and the glittering sands, and from their tents the Tartar horsemen filed into the open plain. So Haman bade. Haman, who next to Peran Wisa ruled the host, and still was in his lusty prime. From their black tents, long files of horse they streamed, as when some grey November morn the files, in marching order spread, of long-necked cranes stream over Caspian and the southern slopes of Elburz, from the Arabian estuaries, or some from Caspian reed bed southward bound, for the warm Persian seaboard, so they streamed. The Tartars of the Oxus, the king's guard, first with black sheepskin caps and with long spears, large men, large steeds, who from Bukhara come and Hiva and ferment the milk of mares. Next, the more temperate Turkmuns of the south, the Tukas, the lancers of Salor, and those from Atrak and the Caspian sands, light men on light steeds, who only drink the acrid milk of camels and their wells. And then a swarm of wandering horse, who came from far and a more doubtful service owned, the Tartars of Fergana from the banks of the Jaxartes, men with scanty beards and close-set skullcaps, and whose wilder hordes who roam over Kipchak and the northern waste, Kalmuks and the unkempt Cossacks, tribes who stray nearest the pole, and wandering Kirgizes who come on shaggy ponies from Pamer. These all filed out from camp to the plain. And on the other side, the Persians formed. First, a light cloud of horse. Tartars, they seemed, the Ilyats of Khorasan, and behind, the royal troops of Persia, horse and foot, marshalled battalions bright in burnished steel. But Peran Wisa with his herald came, treading the Tartar squadrons to the front, and with his staff kept back the foremost ranks. And when Farud, who led the Persians, saw that Peran Wisa kept the Tartars back, he took his spear, and to the front he came, and checked his ranks and fixed them where they stood. And the old Tartar came upon the sand betwixt the silent hosts and spake and said, Farud, and ye Persians and Tartars, hear. Let there be truce between the hosts today, but choose a champion from the Persian lords to fight our champion, Sohrab, man to man.
Okay. This portion obviously is a very great and a beautiful description of all the warriors on both sides. So Peran Wisa did not take any weapon like sword, but he took his staff because his purpose of going was not to command or to fight, but to make this main announcement, which is in the form of a challenge. So as he goes, all the armies are arranging themselves behind him, and the poet describes, probably given in the original also, what are the various order in which the armies are laid, and who are the tribes who are there in the beginning, who are there in the middle, who are there in the end. Like that, the description is there, and what is that they wore, what are the weapons that they were carrying. So many descriptions are there. Various nomadic tribes and others are also part of the army. Like that it is. They have formed the part of this side of the army, which is the Tartars. And on the other side, the Persians were there, and they were also quite, a great army, and they were having the horse riders in the back, like that it is described. Now, when Peran Wisa was walking to the front now, and he asked all his army commanders and the warriors and every other person there to stop wherever they are, and he proceeded forward. The moment Farud is the commander-in-chief and one of the key persons on the opposite camp. Once Farud saw that Peran Wisa is coming alone with a staff in hand, he also understood there is something that he probably has come to convey, so he makes sure that his army stops. And there is no more marching forward of the armies. Peran Wisa goes near them and he makes this announcement that let there be truce between the hosts today. There is no fighting today. But you choose a champion from your side to fight our champion. Our champion is Sohrab. And Sohrab, you have to fight 1-to-1. This is our challenge. What do you say? This is Peran Wisa's words to Farud and all the other people who are standing there. Now, what is happening on the other side? Because the moment they heard this, it is not something very easy for them to digest. Let's see what happens. Yeah.
As in the country on a morn in June, when the dew glistens on the pearled ears, a shiver runs through the deep corn for joy. So, when they heard what Peran Wisa said, a thrill through all the Tartar squadrons ran, of pride and hope for Sohrab whom they loved. But as a troop of peddlers from Kabul cross underneath the Indian Caucasus, that vast sky neighboring mountain of milk snow, crossing so high that as they mount, they pass long flocks of traveling birds dead on the snow, choked by the air, and scarce can they themselves slake their parched throats with sugared mulberries. In single file they move and stop their breath, for fear they should dislodge the overhanging snows. So the pale Persians held their breath with fear, and to Farud, his brothers chiefs came up to council. Gudurs and Zorah came, and Ferabers, who ruled the Persian coast, second, and was the uncle of the king. These came and counselled, and then Gudur said, Farud, shame bids us take their challenge up. Yet, champion have we none to match this youth. He has the wild stag's foot, the lion's heart. But Rustum came last night, aloof he sits, and sullen, and has pitched his tents apart. Him will I seek, and carry to his ear the Tartar challenge, and this young man's name. Haply he will forget his wrath, and fight, stand forth the while, and take their challenger. So spake he, and Firud stood forth and cried, Old man, be it agreed, as thou hast said, let Sohrab arm, and we will find a man.
Right. So, he is describing the feeling of both the camps now, once this announcement was made, because the armies also didn't know. Only Sohrab made that proposal to Peran Wisa, and Peran Wisa has now made it open and public. The moment Tartars heard this, there was a deep sense of pride, there was a deep sense of inspiration in them, because they know that Sohrab cannot be defeated on a one-to-one, and they were looking with a great pride, and they were thinking as to who can challenge our Sohrab. On the other side, though all were warriors, a deep shiver ran through them, and that is beautifully given in that metaphor. He says, in the great Himalayan mountain, as the birds that they go there, they are flying, it is very difficult to cross over that, and various avalanches do come. However high the birds fly also, it just finishes them off, and a series of cranes are there lying dead. The cranes go in a formation, but the moment they see all these dead bodies, they are afraid how they are going to cross. And in the avalanche, what happens is that you need to make one sort of a disturbance, and then the whole snow will come upon them. So they change their formation and go one by one. Instead of trying anything, they themselves voluntarily give up their life. And how do they give up their life? They eat some big fruit, they themselves choke, and in the process of choking they can't breathe, and then they fall there. This beautiful metaphor he gives, and he says the Persians are feeling choke like those birds, he said. He says it is a shame. Also, some few councillors came near Firud and said, Gudurs and others, it's a shame that we cannot, it will be a shame that if we cannot accept this challenge. We have to accept. But we all know there is nobody equal to Sohrab in our camp. He is young, but he is like a wild stag. Nobody can match him. So what to do is a big question mark for them. And then Gudur says that last night only Sohrab has also come nearby, and he has laid his tent somewhere here nearby. I will go and convince him. He will happily fight. He will leave all his wrath and anger. That means they know that Rustum is in anger. For some anger or there, it is there. But here is a challenge which he should not deny, or he cannot deny. So I will go and convince him, and let him come and fight. We will make him come and fight. So they make this announcement that let Sohrab get ready. In the meanwhile, we will find our man. This they talk back, and they throw the challenge back, and they say that they are ready for the challenge. Yeah.
He spake, and Peran Wisa turned and strode back through the opening squadrons to his tent. But through the anxious Persians Gudurs ran, and crossed the camp which lay behind, and reached out on the sands beyond it. Rustum's tent. Of scarlet cloth they were, and glittering gay, just pitched. The high pavilion in the midst was Rustum's, and his men lay camped around. And Gudurs entered Rustum's tent, and found Rustum. His morning meal was done, but still the table stood before him, charged with food, a side of roasted sheep, and cakes of bread, and dark green melons. And there Rustum sate, listless, and held a falcon on his wrist, and played with it. But Gudurs came and stood before him, and he looked and saw him stand, and with a cry sprang up and dropped the bird and greeted Gudurs with both hands and said, "Welcome! These eyes could see no better sight. What news? But sit down first and eat and drink." But Gudurs stood in the tent door and said, "Not now. A time will come to eat and drink, but not today. Today has other needs. The armies are drawn out and stand at gaze, for from the Tartars is a challenge brought to pick a champion from the Persian lords to fight their champion. And thou knowest his name. Sohrab men call him, but his birth is hid. O Rustum, like thy might is this young man's. He has the wild stag's foot, the lion's heart, and he is young. And Iran chiefs are old, or else too weak, and all eyes turn to thee. Come down and help us, Rustum, or we lose." He spoke, but Rustum answered with a smile, "Go to. If Iran's chiefs are old, then I am older. If the young are weak, the king errs strangely. For Kai Khusro himself is young and honors younger men, and he lets the aged molder to their graves. Rustum he loves no more, but loves the young. The young may rise in Sohrab's bonds, not I. For what care I, though all speak Sohrab's fame? For would that I myself had such a son, and not that slight, helpless girl I have. A son so famed, so brave, to send to war, and I to tarry with the snow-head Zal, my father, whom the robber Afghans vex, and clip his borders short and drive his herds, and he has none to guard his weak old age. There would I go and hang my armor up, and with my great name fence that weak old man, and spend the goodly treasures I have got, and rest my age, and hear of Sohrab's fame, and leave to death the hosts of thankless kings, and with these slaughterous hands draw sword no more." He spoke and smiled.
The Gudus goes to the tent of Rustum, and Rustum greets him. He is playing with a falcon, a bird, and now he greets him. He is unaware of whatever is happening in the battlefield. And he says, come, have breakfast with me. He has just finished everything. So he says, there's no time for that now, Gudur says. They have thrown open a challenge for 1-1. And the champion from their side is Sohrab. And nobody is willing to take up the challenge here because they all know the power of Sohrab. So our request is that you must take it up. Rustum refuses. He says, why should I fight? I have given up everything. And for who? The thankless king, Kai Khusro. He himself is young and he has left the old warriors to sort of rot away, and he is only giving, let's say, power and position to young people, and these young people, they are not wanting to challenge. It's a shame. And these young people may be, their pride may be hurt. For me, it doesn't hurt anymore. If anybody challenges and I don't go, it doesn't really matter at all. I also heard of the name Sohrab, and he says that the birth of Sohrab is hid because they did not know who and how and whose father, whose son is this and all. They do not know, but all that they know is that there is a great champion and he is coming and challenging. He said, if I had a son, he will be like Sohrab. I will be happily sending Sohrab on my behalf to all the battlefields because he is like a worthy successor to me. And then I will go to my aged father who is fending his flock of sheep and other things in his village there. With my name, I will protect him and lead a very happy retired life. His father is Zal. So he is totally disinterested, and he says, but unfortunately I have a girl. He says that is the tragedy. It is very interesting. At this phase we will stop, because how is now a disinterested Rustum tempted and persuaded by Gudurs to fight? That's very interesting. And then what happens in the fight, we'll continue in the next class to see.
Om. पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः